Today's department is the personal brand department. I have with me someone who has worked with some of the top names when we think about the concept of personal branding. People like Lewis Howes, Ed Milet, Eric Thomas, Amy Porterfield, and so much more. And I'm so excited to have this personal branding expert with me, Rory Vaden.
People misunderstand personal branding completely. Everyone thinks personal branding is a podcast, a YouTube channel, a social media, a book, a course, a speaker. The way that we define personal branding is simply the digitization of reputation. We've now helped 29 clients become New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or USA Today bestselling authors. And it's through fully legitimate, not gaming the system. It's through building reputation. How do you clarify what you're about, what's distinct about you, what's different from you from everyone else in the world? It's not an honor to be the world's best kept secret. It is an absolute shame that that person and their gifts are not being shared with the world. The single greatest piece of personal branding advice that I've ever received, and this is not a Rory Vaden quote, I wish it was, but it was from a gentleman named Larry Winget. And early in my speaking career, I heard Larry say, the goal of your personal brand is
So I'm so excited to get into this conversation with Rory Vaden, somebody I've been looking up to for quite some time, I would say about 2.5 years or so. And he's a personal branding expert, a New York Times bestselling author, one of the youngest people to be inducted in the Hall of Fame of public speaking, which is awesome, multiple 8-figure entrepreneur, man of God, family man, and I love everything that you're doing. And if you're, if there are these names, I'm gonna list out some names: Lewis Howes, Ed Milet, Eric Thomas, Amy Porterfield, some of the strongest personal brands that are literally out there in every industry. Rory has been the person behind it, really architecting what they're walking in now. And so I'm so excited to get into this personal branding conversation. Thank you so much for being on the department.
Well, thanks, brother. I just one clarification, like all of our clients are people who it's not that much to do with us. We get way more credit than we deserve. Most of them were very successful before we started working with them.
Yeah.
And I think what we try to do is we try to accelerate and amplify something, that's God's already divinely created, that they've already worked really hard to do. And then there's kind of these key places that we come in and we try to really just accelerate their impact. But yeah, we have worked with a lot of very high profile clients. If there's one thing I've done right, it's just picking really good clients, and then it makes me look really
some plant,
good.
Some water, and it looks like you guys are really good at watering the seed.
Yeah. Well, and I think the single greatest piece of personal branding advice that I've ever received, and this is not a Rory Vaden quote, I wish it was, but it was from a gentleman named Larry Winget. And early in my speaking career, I heard Larry say, the goal of your personal brand is to find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. But Larry wasn't in the business of teaching people how to do it. He just said that's what you should do. Mm-hmm. And at the time, we had built our first business, which we started that in 2006. I started it with my wife, a woman. I've really started with my friend in college, and he had a friend that he grew up with, this girl named AJ, and a couple other partners. And then we started to grow the business, and then AJ and I fell in love, and we got married. That's and cool. So we built that business to 200 people. It was 8-figure business. Wow. We sold that in 2018. And so Brand Builders Group, which is our current business, we never really planned on even having this business. In fact, we were talking about Lewis Howes. Lewis Howes is the reason Brand Builders Group exists.
Wow, that was recent too, fairly recent.
Fairly, it was 2018. Okay. And literally the day that we separated from our former company, Lewis had called, and I had met Lewis. I was on his show when it was the School of Greatness, when it was just coming up. It was just like this, dude. It was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I saw this just like I see you. And I go, this guy's going to be a freaking superstar. Like, he's an amazing guy. Just like I see you, Omar. Like, that's why I'm here. It was like,
I appreciate that.
I believe in you, brother. And I've was able to see that with Lewis early. So I came on his show, we became friends. And I had just hit the New York Times with my first book, Take the Stairs. I was 29 years old, and Lewis and I are the same age. And I was like, dude, are you going to write a book? I'll tell you everything we did, and we became friends. And then we lost touch. And to the day that we exited our former company, Lewis called and said, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while. My podcast has grown a lot. He'd gotten up to like 30 million downloads. And he said, I just feel like I'm pulled in all these directions. I'm working really hard. I've got all of these people. I've got so many opportunities coming at me. I'm not like clear on what I should do. By chance, could I spend some time with you? Like, I need your brain on my business. And it was like, sure. And so he came over.
And you didn't even have an offer? It was
no,
just like,
we were not. No, we were actively not trying to start a company.
Wow.
And I mean, we had just gotten out of this business that really we thought we were going to be in forever. And, it ended sort of suddenly. But anyways, Lewis came over and, we started to work with him and he said, this is the most powerful 2 days I've ever experienced. This is your new company. This is what you guys were born to do. And it was like, no. Like, Lewis, this is not what we don't do this.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, this is what you're going to do. And it was like, we just got out. And I said, well, Lewis, you don't understand. Like, I just sold my podcast, my email list, all of my social platforms, my YouTube channel, all of our 200 team members. Like, we don't have anything anymore. I mean, we had some money, but we don't have a team. And he's like, that's okay. I'm going to have you on my show and we're going to tell the whole world that this is what you do now.
I think that's so cool.
And that's how Brand Builders Group was born.
That's so good. I know this is like a tangent I didn't expect to go on, but you sold your email list, your YouTube channel. What was the YouTube channel a company YouTube channel or was it your name YouTube channel?
Yeah. So yes. So what happened was I had a personal YouTube channel. We had a company YouTube channel. I had a personal podcast. The way that we had our agreements written was that the company owned all of the property, all of the assets. So we had an exit, and what happened was those assets got rolled up in the exit. It wasn't like someone showed up and was like, hey, let me buy your YouTube channel. It wasn't huge. It would have been huge now.
Well, you're saying the possibility of it. Because I think some people who start their content creation journey or their personal brand journey, they're like, do I call it my company or do I call it my name?
Yeah.
And I always think that it is harder to sell your name as a business that gets sold.
It is.
Versus like you do a company name, but then I think you could build your audience quicker with your name and your face.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
You grow an audience much faster with personal brands. In fact, one of the things that we did recently is we conducted a national research study. So a PhD-led, academically verified, like statistically valid general population study of the United States, the largest study on personal branding that from an actual data perspective. And one of the data points, it's called the Trends in Personal Branding Research Study. So one of the data points that came out of that is that 58% of Americans said they were actually willing to pay more money to buy the same service or product from a company where the values of the founder align with their personal values. So we follow people, but we buy companies. And this is the difference between being a personal brand and a lot of what I think we advise personal brands on is monetization strategy and building a business. Like very few personal brands get to 8 figures, right? This is our second time. And we went from 0 to 8 figures in 5 years this time. And I've been talking about started on 0 again.
That's wild.
But so we've done that now twice. And there's a lot of the big personal brands that everybody's enamored with, they don't do as much revenue as one might think. And they're also they struggle to have sellable assets. So there's a big difference between being well known and having an asset that has enterprise value. And we like to do both.
Right.
And I think that's part of what is unique about us. In fact, we're more of entrepreneurs. And then we had the speaker author when we understand personal brands. But I think of it as like when you're launching a rocket, right? So if you're launching a rocket, that's like starting a business. It takes so much gravitational thrust to get that thing off the ground. It takes every single thing you have. And we love to use personal brands to help launch the business. But there's a reason why brandbuildersgroup.com exists and RoryVaden.com and AJVaden.com also exist. we're using our personal brands because people are drawn to us, but ultimately we're creating an asset that has enterprise value. A business that has enterprise value is basically you got to think of it as a money printing machine. And does that machine print money whether you're there or not? Most personal brands, they're completely dependent on the person. So what we do is we marry the worlds. Is we go, we're going to use our personal brands to launch this business, and once the business grows up and gets once we break through the Earth's sort of gravitational pull, and we're in outer space, now the business can survive, and the rockets break off, and now the business is something that lives and operates on its own. And the other thing you're trying to do in a business is you're trying to eliminate risk and overdependency on the founder. That's the risk of any business. And so we need the business to operate without us, not only in order for it to be sellable, but in order for it to be secure for the people inside the business. And that's
so good.
I was mentored by the Zig Ziglar, who was
OG leadership
legend.
John Maxwell's. John Maxwell.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. And he actually found me.
Wow.
One day. The story of how
I love that. I think let's just say that personal branding allows you to be found. I told you that I was working with Lewis last week. It's because he found me. Why did he find me? Because I was building my personal brand.
So yes. And here's the thing. People misunderstand personal branding completely. Everyone thinks personal branding is a podcast, a YouTube channel, a social media, a book, a course, a speaker. That is not how we define personal branding at Brand Builders Group. The way that we define personal branding is simply the digitization of reputation.
That's a bar.
What personal branding really is it's not new. It's as old as time. It's reputation. And the reason people do personal branding wrong is they think it's hacks and algorithms and facial expressions on your thumbnail. Those are tactics to use to help you get more attention, which is great. They're not wrong, but they're not the essence of a personal brand. The essence of a personal brand is your reputation. And that existed offline long before online ever was around. And that's what happened with even my relationship with Lewis was really an offline relationship.
Yep.
Most of your most influential relationships you will develop in your life happen offline.
That's good.
Even today. Now, the way I got introduced to Ed Milet was through John Gordon. I've known John Gordon for a decade as a speaker. John introduced me to Ed. Ed became a client, and Ed introduced me to millions of people after we had a very successful experience working together.
That's good.
But it was the offline relationships. And so with Zig Ziglar, he found me because I was in a contest called the World Championship of Public Speaking. And so when I was in my early 20s,
what made you want to join that competition or sport?
Yeah, I wanted to be a speaker, right? And so part of what we do today is if somebody has that, if you sit in an audience and you go, how do you get to be the person on stage? I know that person so intimately. That's been the walk of my, life and my professional life. And same with if you've ever walked into a bookstore and said, how do you get your book on this shelf? And how do you get that New York Times best-selling sticker on there? That's been the walk of my professional life. We've now helped 29 clients become New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or USA Today best-selling authors.
That's wow.
And it's through fully legitimate, not gaming the system. It's through building reputation, serving people, exploiting your uniqueness in the service of others. So anyways, I'm back to the Zig Ziglar thing. I wanted to be a speaker, but I was 22 years old, and it was who's going to hire me to come speak? And I heard about this contest called the World Championship, and I thought maybe if I won the World Championship, and this is before American Idol, but this was actually it was right as American Idol was happening. So what American Idol was for music, I was oh, this thing is probably that for speaking.
That's wild.
It is exactly like that. The difference is nobody cares. When you win American Idol, you become famous. When you win the World Championship of Public Speaking, nothing really happens.
you get a
trophy.
It was a glass
trophy.
It
is a glass trophy. It actually is a really big deal inside the world of Toastmasters. And I love Toastmasters. Toastmasters was a huge part of my journey. So encouraging, so supportive. And that was where I got my stage time. Was I spoke 304 times for free to these small groups of like 5 or 10 people at Toastmasters and through the company we were starting. And I made it. There's 25,000 people who compete in the contest. I made it to the top 10 in the world. And I lost the first year in 2006. And then I invested more in coaching. I spent more time practicing. I watched thousands of hours of film, read dozens of books, made it all the way back to the World Championship in 2007. And that was the year that I lost again, actually, but I lost higher than the first time. I was the world champion of public speaking, first runner up.
Okay.
And so then a few months later, I'm at the National Speakers Association, national convention. I don't know anybody really. I'm sitting by myself in this huge cafeteria at lunch, and there's thousands of people there. And this man walks up to me, and he says, "You're Rory Vaden, right?" And I said, "Well, yes, sir, I am." He said, "I heard about you. You're the Toastmaster kid, right? You did the World Championship." And I was like, "Well, yeah, that's me." And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know you. Have we met?" And he says, "My name is Zig Ziglar."
Wow.
And Zig Ziglar sat down next to me and talked to me for like 2 to 3 hours, and we became friends. And then he became my mentor, and I got to travel with him backstage, and
Wow.
he would be in arenas of people. And I watched how people responded to this man and how he changed lives. And to this day, I firmly believe the fastest way to take somebody from a complete stranger to a lifelong fan is a world-class 1-hour presentation. So yesterday, I was keynoting the Keller Williams National Convention, 17,000 people,
Wild.
right? I'm keynoting with Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, myself, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who's one of our clients. She just hit the New York Times. Cody Sanchez, a new friend, world-class, lineup. And so many people walk into a room never having heard of me before. And then if you can deliver this amazing 1-hour presentation, it can be life-changing and life bonding. And it's all about building your reputation by focusing on serving the audience. Simple.
Have you ever wondered to yourself or asked yourself the question when you watch my content, how the heck does Omar's quality of video look and sound so dang crispy? It's literally the #1 question I get asked, whether it's privately in the DMs or people commenting on my videos on Instagram or even on YouTube. The reality is, I believe the quality of videos that I've been able to produce has been the recipe to my success online. And I wanna give you access to my live document where I've listed out everything I use, both for the podcasts I create, to the YouTube videos I make, as well as to what I use for my smartphone to make it look and sound amazing. The reason I put it on a live doc is because I keep this document updated in real time with everything that I'm using. So just head over to thevideodept.co/crispy or just click the link down in the show notes. Let's get back to the conversation. Yeah. It's simple, but it's not, because there's people that are like, they do think it's start a podcast, or they do think it's start uploading videos online. You have a more holistic approach, but I also love that you said that 1-hour talk, that almost is like a great constraint to give a person who is wanting to build their personal brand, like a North Star. Is that a good North Star? Like, hey, you want to build your personal brand this year? By the end of this year, you should have a 1-hour talk that encapsulates the thing that you want to be known for / the thing you want people to know you for, as far as how you help them?
Yeah. So the Brand Builders Group, so we have the Brand Builder Journey. So all these people, these clients that we work with, right? It's 14 different 2-day experiences.
14 different 2 days.
The first 2-day experience is called Finding Your Brand DNA. It's where we find your uniqueness. And we codify it into like a 1-page. This is the essence of what your life is about. We refer to our audience as mission-driven messengers.
I love that.
And we go, how do you clarify what you're about, what's distinct about you, what's different from you from everyone else in the world? Then our second experience is called Captivating Content, where we extrapolate their uniqueness into a body of work. So you could think of it as it's an outline for a book, a course, a 6-month coaching program, but also a TED Talk, a keynote, a half-day program, a 2-day program, all at the same time. So it's a body of work that is unique to you. It's your original intellectual property. We are extracting it out of your head and going, like if lots of people talk about productivity and that kind of stuff. But one of the reasons my TED Talk went viral, and my TED Talk was called How to Multiply Time, and it went viral. So many people talk about those things. But if you want the focus funnel, this 5-part framework for how to multiply time, you have to get it from me. You cannot hire anyone else to teach it. It is my original intellectual property. I'm not reteaching other people's stuff. So much of the internet these days is other people just rehashing, regurgitating other people's stuff. So in Captivating Content, what we do is we create signature frameworks, original thought leadership, dedicated IP that comes out of your brain.
Yeah.
And it's a process we take people through. Then the next thing we do is world-class presentation craft. So we take this full-length book, this 6-month course, and we go, how do we distill it down into a world-class 1-hour presentation? Because that is your greatest marketing, is a 1-hour experience. And it can happen on a podcast, right? Like podcasts have been,
like you're giving this 1-hour experience currently, essentially, kind of, sort of, kind of.
I hope so. Yeah, in some ways, right?
Yeah. No, because I love because I heard you on a podcast and it was like, in all honesty, because of how dialed it is, that you have it dialed. You have the conversation, you kind of own it in some ways, but you're also, because it's in you, you're able to take my question and bring it back to that, the keys of probably this 1-hour presentation that you have. And it honestly is so dialed that it persuades me to want to learn more from you. Because that's thought leadership. It's so it's attractive. You're like, dang, this is the person when it comes to X.
Yeah, and that is a term there's a term that I used to love and then I hate it and now I love it again.
What is it?
Thought leadership.
Yeah.
I used to love it when it first came out and then I hated it because everybody was using it. And now I love it because I actually don't see much thought leadership in the online world. I see a lot of rehashed, regurgitated, stolen, slightly adapted, people who have large platforms not really doing original thinking.
Right.
And so I want to push people to do original thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that that's bad or it's not serving the world. It does serve the world. There's a lot of fundamentals that people haven't reached. And there's a lesson in and of itself there, something we call the reputation formula. So the reputation, you go, okay, so where does reputation come from? The way that we define reputation, or where what makes up reputation, is your results times your reach equals reputation. Results times reach equals reputation.
You're a thought leader. This is 3 R's, literation. You've given this some thought. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we've worked on this.
Yeah.
And I'm never sharing anything in public that I haven't spent hours thinking about and refining. Because if someone's lending me their attention, my job is to be a sieve. My job is to deliver highly concentrated information to maximize every second of their experience. I don't see my job as someone to come pontificate and ponder and conversate randomly and hope that it is somehow valuable for the audience.
Right.
And when people pay me, right? So when people are, I'm going to get paid, north of $50,000. Let's say north of $50,000 to do a 1-hour keynote. They're not paying me $50,000 for that 1 hour.
No.
They're paying me for years of
decades,
original research, wrestling with concepts, testing things, coaching people, and then packaging it, and then coming on stage and delivering it in a way that makes people laugh their freaking faces off, pee their pants laughing, meanwhile having emotional experience of the storytelling and a human experience that's only available through being in the same room as somebody. And hopefully delivering value that you go, well, $50,000 is a lot of money. Well, it's not nothing. But if there's 17,000 people in the room who are all benefiting from years of my knowledge, if those 17,000 people are able to take that out and apply even a small fraction of it, it's potentially worth millions and millions of dollars. And that's how I think of my time and my expertise, is going, it's not what they're paying for me, it's how valuable can it be for them. And so in the reputation formula, I have really focused on results, and we really press our clients on results. How can you create the most value-packed information per second experience as possible?
Wow. How many slides do you have on that 1 hour talk?
I mean, it depends. I mean, we've got lots and lots. We have lots of slides.
Okay.
We have lots of slides. We have all 14 of our 2-day experiences. Like each of them is probably 400 slides, but they're 2 days experiences. So, we can crank slides. But what we've done is we spent a lot of time working on results. It wasn't until recently that I realized reach matters. I undervalued the impact of reach. Here's an example. You've heard of Michael Phelps. Mm-hmm. Who's Michael Phelps?
He's an Olympic swimmer.
Which country?
USA.
Okay. Michael Phelps is the winningest gold medal Olympian of all time. USA swimmer. Have you ever heard of a woman named Jenny Thompson?
No.
Jenny Thompson is the winningest female gold medalist of all time. She is also from the United States. She is also a swimmer. When you look at their results, they are almost exactly comparable at the highest level, the biggest stage in the world, the Olympics.
Yeah.
But when you look at their reach, it's radically different. So which one matters more? I've always played the results game. It's what's your character? What's your experience? What's your knowledge? How much substance do you have? The internet changed it. It tipped everything towards reach. Now reach is influence, right? People care more about how many followers they do than how much money is in their bank account. Like the influence is almost measured by all of these subscribers and your email list and everything, which is fascinating. And so they're not mutually exclusive. It's about having both. But I do think and I do hope. Like I don't love that the world operates that way. I kind of wish there was more of a litmus testing around substance. Yeah. Because the thing about reach is some people have a lot of reach, but in their personal life, it's a mess.
Right.
It's a disaster.
This is why I'm careful I was talking to you earlier, I'm careful to who I invest with. When I'm investing in myself, I'm very careful because I want the values to align and I want their lifestyle, like I want an example that I can actually follow holistically.
Yeah, totally. And that's why, that's one of the reasons I'm such a hardcore Bible thumping Jesus freak. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, we're all plagiarizing Jesus, straight up. That's what it comes down to. So it's most of the principles are not actually original. Mm-hmm. What I think creates thought leadership is to go, how can I forward the thinking of what has been said? How can I not just propagate the conversation? How can I forward the conversation? How can I advance the thinking? And how can I communicate it in a way that is clearer? And that's becoming important because now everybody has reach and the algorithm gives reach to you even if you don't have a huge following. Yeah. If you can deliver information in a highly concentrated fashion, the algorithm can give you reach. Yes. So it's now the pendulum is starting to swing back a little bit. So I'm fascinated by all of it, and I love all of it.
Okay, I have 3 questions. I wish I was writing them down because I don't want to lose them. The first one is with these list of people that the world knows: Lewis Howes, Ed Milet, Eric Thomas, Amy Porterfield. What do they have in common? Because I would say they're your superstars and A students. What did they have in common that you see people that maybe don't see the level? And I know it's not about just reach, but there's something about these individuals. They have something.
Yeah. So, I hesitate to call them students of mine. Yeah. Again, we're
clients.
Definitely clients. Okay. But we're not the mastermind behind their entire personal brand. Mm-hmm. And I don't think none of them would say that. None of them would say that. There are specific places that we have really moved the needle for them in a way that I think, in some places creates exponential results. So, but whether it's them, let's just say anybody. Yeah. How do you become well known? And the greatest framework of this is something that we call Sheehan's Wall. And I actually named this after a colleague of mine named Peter Sheehan. And Peter is brilliant. He created this as like a corporate framework, and we adapted it to personal branding, but it came from him, and we've kind of adapted it, but we named it after him. He didn't name it after himself. But it's an honor to his idea. But when you apply it to personal branding, the way that this works is that there's two groups of people. There are those who are unknown. They are living in obscurity. And then there are those that are well-known. They have notoriety, right? In their space, or at some level they are trusted. And in between the two is this huge invisible wall called Sheehan's wall. And what most of the people who are struggling with obscurity do is they look at what the people in notoriety are doing. They look at Gary Vaynerchuk and Tony Robbins and Mel Robbins and Brene Brown and whoever, and
Rory Vaden.
they go, Rory's trying to break through the wall still in many ways. I've broken through some walls. And the truth is there's several different walls. But we look at Gary Vaynerchuk and we go, oh, like he talks about Web3 and talks about sports and he talks about music and he talks about social media and business and, like advice to younger generations. And, so we go, I don't want to talk about lots of topics.
I think this is so good.
And Tony Robbins
we're looking at people who have gone through that wall, and we want to use them as the example, but they've broken through that.
That's right.
Okay, good.
The big issue is you can't look at what someone's doing and emulate that. You have to look at what they did and emulate that.
That's so good.
And so we have lots of topics. Obviously, there's so many platforms we're trying to keep up, right? We're trying to YouTube and repurpose it for audio, and then cut it into Instagram and to TikTok, and so we're on all these platforms, and then we have all these different business models. I mean, this is the new thing. This is the stupidest piece of advice on the internet there is multiple streams of income. I am telling you, that is the dumbest thing on the internet. Nobody who got rich from multiple streams of income. Nobody. The world's wealthiest people got wealthy from one freaking amazing stream of income.
That's good.
The way you get rich is through doing one thing really, really well. Then once you break through the wall, you diversify and you put your money to work for you, where your money creates money. That's once you've broken through the wall. And so this is one of the issues, right?
Good.
It's the same thing with money. Is when rich people teach people about money, they're teaching people what they're doing.
Right now.
They need to be teaching people what they did.
That's good.
The way what they did was they hustled. They probably got debt free, right? That's why it's like Dave Ramsey catches a lot of hate from rich people. I'm like, Dave Ramsey has changed more lives than anybody financially. Like, I'm a huge Ramsey fan. The reality is, you got to get debt free. Like, you got to pay the bills. Like, you're not, I don't think buying commercial real estate is the way to get rich. At first, what you do is you get debt free. You live below your means. You invest into your business. You invest into your personal development. You learn how to run a budget, and you dedicate 100% of your excess money and your excess time into doing something great. And then you break through the wall financially. And then once you have money, then you can invest, then you can buy businesses, then you can do different things. But if you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. And the reason that people bounce off the wall with their personal brand is the same reason they bounce off the wall financially. They're 18 years old trying to create multiple streams of income because that's what they heard some guy who's rich talk about on the internet. And that's bad advice. What you want is to create one amazing stream of income and become rich and then multiply it later. Same way you break through the wall, right? With your personal brand. And business models, right? This is happening, right? It's going, people, every time you scroll on social, someone's going, you want to make millions? Start a membership. You want to make money? Become a coach. You want to make millions? Write your next book. Start a speaking career. Do live events, masterminds, retreats, like high dollar offers, $7 tripwires.
I'll be honest with you. Last year, I made a big financial mistake because I had excess money, and I put it into a fund, and I lost it. And I own the mistake, but I'm thinking back to why did I even arrive there? Dude, it's freaking because of this. You gotta, and I'm like, and so it's actually killing. I found that the skill I lack most right now in the season that I've self-identified is delayed gratification. And those kinds of messages, because it comes off so easy, and they also make it sound very easy.
They make it sound easy.
That's the scary thing about social media.
That's what makes it sell.
Right.
Anything that sounds easy is what makes it sell.
Right.
And that, by the way, was my whole first book, Take the Stairs, is the psychology of overcoming procrastination and building self-discipline. And one of the principles in there is easy short-term choices lead to difficult long-term consequences. Difficult short-term choices lead to easy long-term consequences.
That's good.
It is delayed gratification. It's thinking longer term. And what you should be investing on if you're early in is you should be investing in your business.
Yeah.
You should be, one of my favorite quotes of all time is that you should always be the number one investor in your own dream.
It's good.
What you should be doing is investing in your own education. You should be investing in masterminds, right? So you shared the story that you invested $50,000 in a mastermind. Some people would go, "You're insane, $50,000 into a mastermind." And here's what's so silly about that. No one says, "Oh yeah, go take out $200,000 in debt to go get a college diploma from a bunch of knowledge that will be irrelevant by the time you get the paper. You'll probably never use it."
Yep.
I don't mean to poo-poo on college. There's valuable things that have come from college. But when it comes to making money, college does not teach you how to make money.
Right.
It's not set up that way. You will learn from people who have done what you have done in the way that you have done it, and they will teach you how to make money faster. So investing $10,000 for a coaching program from someone who's done it, right? And that's what you want to look at, really.
Yeah.
The thing, coming back to the reputation formula, everyone is impressed with reach. What the world will wake up to sooner or later again is they'll revert to going, "Oh, what I should be impressed with is results."
Yeah.
Who are you in real life? What kind of marriage do you have? How healthy are you? How happy are you when the camera's not on? And what level of peace do you have?
It's good.
I really think peace is the ultimate profit. Like, peace is the ultimate profit. How peaceful are you? Some of your peace comes from your reach. I want to feel like I'm making a difference in the world. I want to feel like people are hearing me. I want to feel like I'm positively influencing other people's lives. So reach is important. Some of peace is about money. I want to feel like I'm not stressed
100.
Financially. But financial peace has much more to do with what you're spending relative to what you make than it does with how much you make overall. It's the margin it's the margin. That's what creates peace. It's the same thing with time, right? My second book about how to multiply time. Stress doesn't come from having too much to do. Stress comes from having too much to do in too short of a window to do it. So you have this overflow of pressure. But if I have time to do it, like if I extend the deadline, now I have margin. So I have peace. Peace is the result of margin. And so it's relative to, the margin financially and so forth. But anyways, when you, coming back to Sheehan's wall, how do you break through the wall? The way you break through the wall is not doing all of this stuff all at the same time. It is by finding your uniqueness and exploiting it. It's doing one thing over and over. I mean, think about an actual wall, Omar. Like if we took this wall right here and we took a sledgehammer and we hit all different parts of the wall, that wall's not going to come down.
Yeah.
The way that you make that wall come down is you hit the same spot over and over and over and over. And at first it would be frustrating because it feels like nothing's happening. But then the paint would start to chip off. Then you would see a dent. Then you would see a crack. Then a little hole, like space would carve out.
Right.
And then a hole would break. You would see light come through, a little hole. And then the next hit, you'd blow through there. And then you simply reach through and pull, and the entire wall falls down. That's how you break through the wall. Yes, Gary Vaynerchuk talks about all of these things, but how did he become Gary Vaynerchuk? He talked about one thing, wine, on one platform, YouTube. Like, let us not forget, not what is he doing today? How did he get to what he was doing? And this is another reason why it's like you can't compare your step 3 to someone else's step 100.
Right.
But these principles,
so
Tony
good.
Robbins was the walk on fire guy. Like that was what he did. Amy Porterfield, she was the queen of courses, right? With Lewis Howes, E.T. is like one of the most inspiring speakers in the world. Like he's the speaker guy who's on fire, and then he put a camera on himself, and that's the story. I think Lewis has been so generous with the credit he's given us, like which is far too much. But if there is one thing that I think we genuinely helped Lewis with, it was this conversation about multiple streams of income. Because when we sat together in the basement, and I've always been impressed with him. I've always like been so inspired. All these people, right? Like I'm such a self-help junkie. I am like amazed. I fangirl over my clients every day. I'm like, I can't believe like I'm talking to this person, and that's Lewis included. But when Lewis came, he had 17 revenue streams. 17 revenue streams.
Masterminds, challenges, courses, coaching.
And really, he was a course company. And so we do this thing called the revenue streams assessment where we list out all the revenue streams. And it's like, because his friends are doing free plus shipping, and this friend's doing live events, and this friend's doing keynotes. And this ad was like, like you should start a membership program. And then someone's got a coaching program, like one-on-one coaching. And it's like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And it's he who chases two rabbits catches neither. Chinese proverb.
Yep.
Diluted focus, diluted results. Well, what we do is we kind of score and go, which activities are creating the most natural momentum with the least amount of resistance? We believe that is a hint into God's divine design of your humanity.
I love that.
And when we looked at this list for Lewis, it was like, man, this podcasting thing, which was not even really his business model at the time, it really was a traffic source to all this other stuff. It was like, Lewis, the podcast actually seems like the thing you love doing that could scale infinitely, that you have natural momentum with. Lewis is an amazing relationship builder. I mean, his real, he has many superpowers, but one of them is just, he makes you feel so special because he genuinely cares about people. And he's a master at that, and he's a master networker. And you look at all these things, and we're just an outsider going, what would happen, Lewis? It took you 8 years to get 30 million downloads or whatever, or 6 years, or how, it was just still like amazing growth. And we just basically asked the question to him and said, what would happen if you went all in on the podcast? And to his credit, I mean, he had some major cojones. Like he shut down multiple streams of revenue that were multiple revenues each.
7 figures, multiple. Yeah.
I mean, I was with him at the time. I was helping him kind of like teach some of the content in his mastermind, right? He would bring me in because he was really good at putting the party together, and I was like one of his content guys, like teaching. And I was there with him the day that we said a complete shock announcement. I mean, the night before we're in the hotel lobby, and he's like, I think we need to shut down the mastermind. It's I love it, but it's a distraction. And it was this diluted focus, diluted results. And so we announced the next day. I was sitting there with him, and it was such a courageous, bold move that he stayed true to his mission of impacting 100 million lives, that he's like, I have to stay focused on that. And so that was really it. And then he went all in on the podcast, and then he went from like 30 million to 500 million downloads in the next couple of years. But it's like, we didn't teach him how to do a great podcast. We're not the ones who are like the amazing podcast people. It's strategy, right?
Yeah.
And Brand Builders Group is a strategy firm. We helped Lewis figure out what to say no to and what to say yes to. But he's the one who did it. He did all of it.
Yeah.
And he just took his natural talents, but he did one thing over and over and over. And if you're a small business, I mean, this is not that complicated. If you're a small business with a small team and a relatively small amount of financial resources and certainly time resources, if I have to distribute those assets or those resources across 17 things, what's the likelihood of success of any of those versus if I take those assets and I concentrate them on one thing.
Yeah.
And so we help people figure out what their one thing should be. Lewis's one thing should not be the same as Amy Porterfield's one thing, which should not be the same as Ed Milet's one thing, which should not be the same. And so you can't have a blanket strategy of just like, here's the secret.
Yeah.
And I think if Brand Builders Group, part of why there's lots of reasons why I think we've grown. Not one because my wife is brilliant. She's the CEO. She is the most brilliant entrepreneur that I've ever been around, and she's extremely disciplined in how she operates the company, and then all of our incredible partners and stuff. But we do human coaching.
Yeah.
Like ours is a human experience.
Yeah.
We have like a virtual community, but like we've really leaned into human events. Our live events. There could be lots of people there, but we do them in tables. So there's 5 people at a table with one of our strategists.
That's good.
And then our coaching, our flagship coaching program, it's a one-on-one call with your own strategist. And then we have these private VIP days. So we only have 3 parts of our model. There's our virtual membership, then there's our flagship program, which is a combination of the virtual but in-person human experiences, small group workshops. And then we have private VIP days, which are locked in a room for 2 days with our strategist working on one thing and knocking it out.
Good. You said no, like I have found the people I've been trying to help and the people that I know are seeking this information from this conversation. It's that one thing part. How would you encourage someone to be okay with that one thing? And it looks like you have, because it seems like even the people you've worked with, there's been an evolution, the reinvention of self, or I'm shifting my one thing now, and maybe because you say there's multiple walls, maybe that's the answer. But like, if somebody was like, I can't pick one thing, but even though they have one thing, how would you help them discover that or lock into that?
Yeah, I mean, that question is a 2-day experience. Mm-hmm. That is finding your brand DNA as we go. We help you figure out 4 sets of one things, okay? So here's the 4 one things we help people get clear on, and in a 2-day experience. Now, I'll give you a shortcut here for how to do this in a second, okay? But the 4 one things are, who do you serve? In one phrase, who do you serve? What problem do you solve for that person?
How specific should you be with that who?
Extremely specific.
Okay.
The more specific, the more terrific. The
The
newer you are and the smaller you are, the more specific, the more terrific. As you become more and more successful, you can become like, you break through the wall, so you can expand more, right? So when we come into Sheehan's wall, we're coming in like this to break through, and then you pull the wall down and you're expanding on the other side. But you got to be able to answer the question, what problem do you solve, in one word? If you can't answer that question, there's no way your audience ever will be. Mm. I broke through the wall in my career on procrastination, right? That was Take the Stairs, and How to Multiply Time was studying the issue of procrastination. I became probably the world's leading, or one of the top 5 thought leaders in the world on the psychology of overcoming procrastination. So when we started Brand Builders Group, of course, we had a non-compete, so we had to do something completely different. But Brand Builders Group, we only solve one problem: obscurity. That's our entire business, one problem, right? With Lewis, that was another thing we helped Lewis get really clear on, is what one problem do you want to solve? For Lewis, it's self-doubt. That's his cool problem. Brene Brown, shame. Brene Brown owns shame. It's so clear. She's not a client of ours, but she owns the conversation around shame. She didn't want to become a famous person. She studied shame.
It's good.
Dave Ramsey owns debt. Mm-hmm. Dave Ramsey has dedicated his life to ridding the world of debt. You can't talk about debt and not use the name Dave Ramsey.
I love it.
And he built a multi-9-figure company, over 1,000 employees, paid cash for this monster building in Franklin, Tennessee. He's reaching 17 million people a week on the radio, billion podcast downloads, saying the same thing for 3 hours every day that he has for 30 years. It's hitting the wall over and over and over and over, right? And it's not just in personal brands. Mother Teresa dedicated her life to solving the issue of poverty, and she became world-renowned. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his life literally for the issue of inequality and racism. Like, these people that changed the world with extreme focus. And so the first thing you need to know is focusing yourself on one thing is not limiting yourself. It is increasing with an exponential likelihood a factor that you will reach millions of people and affect millions of people. It is a paradox. By limiting your focus to solving one issue, you will actually impact millions of people.
That's so good. That's a limiting belief that you just broke through. And my example in that is originally when I was making like camera videos, my who was the stay-at-home mom who wants to start making videos. I need to speak to that person. And that it's evolved to now the entrepreneur. And it's a different way. It's a different conversation, but I am saying the same thing. And that you just said, I mean, I love what you just said. The one thing you would think that it's limiting you, but in reality, it's allowing you to. It's expanding you. It's expanding you. So good.
Yeah. What you think is limiting you by limiting your focus, you're expanding your impact. And so that's being clear on what problem do you solve in one word.
Yep.
Now being clear on the who, right? So I love Simon Sinek. I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan, right? Like I love his stuff. And I think Start With Why is really brilliant, magnificent book and magnificent work for companies. But in our experience working with personal brands, you don't start with why, you start with who. The sooner you get clear on who you're serving, every other downstream decision becomes obvious. If I'm talking to stay-at-home moms versus entrepreneurs, everything is different, right? You can teach the same principles, but what product do you offer? What channels do you show up? How often do you publish? What type of guests do you feature?
Yep.
It's all of the downstream decisions are affected. And if you're trying to talk to both of them, you're screwed. Entrepreneurs do not digest or want the same content or have the same problems as a stay-at-home mom. Right. So if you're trying to serve both of them, you're not serving either of them. Those people are bouncing. They're not paying attention. So we have to start with who. And by the way, this is a thing that blew my mind recently, was realizing that for most of us, our why in life is a who.
Say that.
Our why is a who. Our why is our kids. Our why is I want to pay homage to my grandmother and the sacrifices she made. My why, our why in Brand Builders Group is for the mission-driven messenger who's the world's best kept secret. Like, our heart breaks for the person who knows how to change the world and has all the results but has none of the reach. And we're going like, it's not an honor to be the world's best kept secret.
Right.
It is an absolute shame that person and their gifts are not being shared with the world. So our heart breaks for that person, and we understand that person, right? That we are that person. We have been that person. So for many of us, our why is a who inside the business and out. So you got to get clear on that from a strategic perspective. Then the next thing you got to clear on, 4 things. You got to get 4 1 things. What problem do I solve in one word? Who do I solve that problem for? Then how do I solve that problem in one sentence? We call that your message. It's hard work to write a book. It's much harder to explain what your book is about in one sentence. It's hard work to write a speech. It's very difficult to explain what your speech is about in one sentence. So many speakers can talk for an hour, but they cannot tell you what is the one thing you want people to do when they are done listening to your 1-hour speech. What is the one thing you want people to do when they're done reading your book? That's very difficult. That takes discipline and time and intense thought and conversation. And that's the work we take people through. And then the 4th thing is what one revenue stream matters above all others. We've already talked about this, right?
Yeah.
It's not, I don't need multiple streams of crappy income. I need one stream, one life-changing stream of income, one thing that I do really, really well. And I serve those clients in a really, really deep way. And I over-deliver, and I can't just do what I said I would do. I have to over-deliver in a way that blows their freaking minds to where they say, I'm going to have you on my podcast and tell the whole freaking world about you, right? That's what we've been able to do, right? Is we just serve, like, we don't have thousands of customers. We don't have millions of followers. Even today, like, I don't have millions of followers. I don't even have 100,000 followers. Like,
but the bank account is nice.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not just the bank account. It's not just the income account. It's the impact account.
Right.
And impact is both about depth and reach. It's about width. Everybody today they're so concerned about the width of their reach, they're completely ignoring the depth of their impact. And there's two ways to change lives, right? One is to change a lot of people's lives in a shallow way. The other way to change a life is to adopt a child.
Come on.
You tell me who made the greater impact in the world, right? And I'm not poo-pooing on the person who reaches a lot of people. I'm saying they both are significant. It's really like your results times your reach. It's your width times the depth.
Right.
But for most entrepreneurs, most of our clients are not Lewis Howes. That's not the play for them. It's not. And what everyone's doing is they're looking at Gary Vee and they're looking at Lewis and they're looking at Ed and they're going, I got to reach more people. And I'm going, no, that's not the fastest path to cash. The fastest path to cash is not to reach more people. It's to serve your current people in a deeper way.
So good.
So here's another technique. We call this fractal math. I know I'm all over the place, but fractal math says that 10% of your customers will invest at a level 10 times higher than what they just invested. Okay, so let's say, we have a visual for this, I can send it to you, but let's say you have 1,000 customers who paid you $30 for, I don't know, an ebook or something. Okay, that's $30,000. And you go, how do you double your business? The way that most people think is, I need another 1,000 customers. But the most expensive customer to acquire is a new customer. So that can work. You can double your revenue by getting another 1,000 people to buy your $30 product. But the other way to double your revenue,
find the 10%,
is take 10% of those 1,000, which would be 100 people, will invest 10 times more than what they just did, which is $300. So now you'll have 100 people buy something that's $300. That revenue is $30,000.
Right.
You now doubled your revenue with zero customer acquisition cost.
So good.
The profit margin on that is so much higher. Not just the profit margin. Often the stress margin is way lower, way, way lower. But it continues. So you go, let's double again. So I want to take 10% of my 100 customers, which would be 10 people, and I'm going to offer a product that is 10 times more. That's $3,000. So now 3,000 times 10 is $30,000. I doubled my revenue again. And it continues. Out of my 10 people who gave me $3,000, one person would give me $30,000. And I doubled the revenue again. Never added a customer.
So good.
Serving your current audience in a deeper way. It's not the only way to do it, but I'm saying it's the secret that nobody talks about.
Right.
You don't need, we call this the law of AJ Vaden, because my wife has never had millions of followers. She never had even like thousands of followers. My wife took a spiritual gift assessment. Her spiritual gift came back as making money.
Praise God.
Sugar mama. Awesome. Yeah, praise God. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Right? Like, if you're going to choose a character in a spouse, it's not a bad one. And she goes, she is not impressed with like millions of followers and famous people. And it's funny because you go, why are all these people with millions of followers paying us to help them build their business? It's almost to say you shouldn't be impressed with people who have millions of followers. You should be impressed with people who make millions of dollars with few followers.
Right.
Like that's where the magic is. And that's much more likely to happen.
Yes.
It's much easier to happen. It's much faster to happen. And believe it or not, it's what the world needs more of. Mm-hmm. People need to be seen and served in a deeper way. And they're starving for connection. It's proof by all the like mental health issues that we're all like watching stuff online all day. And it's like, we don't have any human friends. We don't have any human experiences. And so anyways, that's what we call fractal math.
Good.
Game changer.
Because something Shalene said, like everybody is so concerned about growing online. Hey, what if you took a season and rather than doing whatever tactics or whatever things you need to do to grow, what if you just went deeper with the people who already follow you? What would that strategy look like? Like, would you make different content? You probably would. You wouldn't make so general. You would understand who's commenting. You would see what they're doing. And most people, like even with decent followings, they still want to grow more. But like, I love that principle. And honestly, it's the principle of stewarding.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about service. And Jesus said, and if you want to be the greatest, be the best servant. How do you become the best servant? By being a specific servant, like serving people with their specific needs. Something I like always talking about in the realm of marketing is I love that Jesus always took care of the immediate need of a person before he offered salvation. And I believe he did that because he knew they'd be receptive to receiving salvation because he took care of something that was immediately their pain. And it's just something that we can all apply in our businesses and even in marketing. I love that. One thing I think about is the tension of building your business and or building your brand. And like if we're considering time being a lack or a limited resource, like if you were, let's just say a real estate agent, you're building your business, you want to sell homes, you want to list homes and you want to, all that stuff. But like, how much should they weigh as far as what they should build first? Chicken comes before the egg in this regard. Like, does the business come first or the brand come first?
Yeah, well, we define brand as the digitization of reputation. So you can't build your business without building your reputation. But you don't necessarily have to build your reputation. Building your reputation online, I think in many ways is one of the slower ways to build your actual offline business and your income. Coming back to you don't need millions of followers to make, this is the law of AJ Vaden. You don't need millions of followers to make millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Most of us, if you just took money as the measurement, in order for us to have our greatest financial year ever, if you added millions of followers, that would far from guarantee that because you tend to make not that much money per additional follower. And it might be hard to do that, right? It would be unlikely to do that. For most of us, the strategy to double our income is we need a couple dozen of our best customers. Mm-hmm. Like whoever your best customer is, like maybe you need 100. Yep. If you had 100 people of your best customer, if you had 100 of them, you would
be cooking.
You'd be cooking. And here's the other thing. And you go, the fastest way to double your business is not to add millions of followers, is to get every single customer you had to refer you one person. Literally. Like every customer you had refers you one person who buys. It doubles your business. I don't need random strangers on the internet. I need to serve the people who are in front of my face in a deeper way. And I need to go, like so many people who sell online products, and I get it because it's running business is hard, right? But so many of us are afraid to even go back and talk to our past customers because we're not sure if they had an amazing experience. If you have any reluctance or hesitation about going back to see your past customers, what does that tell you? Mm-hmm. It tells you you're not 100% certain that you blew their freaking mind and over-delivered, right? I talk to Lewis all the time. Like we haven't worked on a project financially with Lewis in over like a year, but we talk all the time, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid to go to my past clients. My past clients become my friends,
right?
And that's because I'm always doing everything I can to over deliver to them because I know that if I over deliver with them, they're going to bring me more people. Like pretty much our entire hierarchy, it's like it started with Lewis and it's like splintered out. It comes back from serving one person really, really well.
So good.
And that's a much more likely way to double your business. So another way of saying this is that marketing is slow, sales is fast. Marketing is slow, sales is fast. And this is what our first company was a sales training company. Sales, like I can sell a high dollar offer to a stranger. I can sell $100,000 or $10,000 to $100,000 offer after a 1 hour conversation with somebody. But like selling a $100,000 offer to someone on the internet, like good luck. I mean, getting $500 or $1,000 out of a stranger on the internet is like not easy to do. And the people who make millions of dollars, the percentages are extremely low. You're talking 100. Like 1 to 3%. Like
100.
You just don't hear about that part. You don't see that part. You see the ad that says, I made $17 million on my launch last week, right? Yeah. And it's like, yeah, how many years did that build up? How much did you spend on ads? How much went to affiliates? How much staff did you have? Like, what percentage of the people converted? All the people that found, and it's like, no, you didn't make that last Saturday. You made it in the last 10 years, and it happened. You happened to cash in. So it's just we get more from serving the people right in front of us, and Jesus is the ultimate example of that, right? Like, it wasn't millions of people; it was like 3 people.
Yeah.
3 people, right? He's got Peter, arguably his closest personal human relationship. And then he's got James and he's got John. He's got 3 on the inner circle. And then he's got the 12.
Yep.
And then, he starts, he goes and preaches, but then he has multiplied. Like homeboy's been dead for 2,000 years. No one has a bigger personal brand than him.
100.
Like it's multiplying through a transformational experience that when you encounter Jesus and it transforms your life, you have to share it with people.
Yep.
That's the secret to grow. It's not convincing random strangers on the internet.
Yeah, I love that. I just want to shift quickly as we tailor this conversation. You would consider yourself a kingdom entrepreneur.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Could you define what that is, and how have you invited God into the business aspect of your life?
Well, we haven't just invited God into the business aspect of our life. We have surrendered our entire business to God. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen, but for us to go from no plan to start a business, exiting our last business suddenly, starting on 0, getting a phone call from Lewis Howes. By the way, that's a good strategy. Have Lewis Howes as your first client. I haven't mentioned that, right? Like, to go from that to 8 figures again in 5 years, how can we take credit for that? I mean, there's only God. We're surrendered to it. And I have no idea what God's going to do with Brand Builders Group. We're not focused on building Brand Builders Group. We're focused on going, God, how would you have us serve people?
So good.
Who would you have us reach? And we literally feel like, Moses was like, free my people. I feel like God has told us very clearly, help my people be heard. That's the message that I feel like I'm getting, is help my people be heard. And, it was like, I wonder what would happen if I went all in on my personal brand and didn't spend time helping anybody else, right? But that's not what I feel God calling me to do. I don't, and so that's the right decision to me is, what do I hear him saying? So we're totally surrendered to it, which can be crazy. I mean, thy will be done. Scariest prayer of all time. And before we separated our last company, I thought I was going to be there for life.
Wow.
And literally God snapped his fingers and said, this season is over. And what we spent 12 years building, he decided it was over in a day. Like it just became super clear, like, oh, this is now complete. And so we try to just surrender to that because, I mean, this will sound so cheesy, but like, I don't have any other strategy than God. Like what am I going to do? read Revelation, which is crazy, right? If you're a new Christian, it's crazy. Like people think the Bible is like this like holy book, which of course it is, but it's like it's violence and it's sex and it's like people cutting off foreskins, and then Revelation is like fire coming down on earth. Like, okay, if that's what's supposed to happen, what are you gonna do, right? Like there's this spiritual warfare. Like these people are battling out. I'm like, what am I gonna do? And how much does anything I do matter? Like I have no strategy other than Jesus. And, so that's it, man.
That's really good.
It's like I'm fully surrendered, and it almost sounds like this kind of holier than thou, like, oh, you're fully surrendered. I'm going, what other choice do I have, really? And so I've tried at times to fight it and create my own thing and do my own thing. And it's like, if he wants it to happen, he'll snap his fingers and make it happen.
That's good.
If he doesn't want it to happen, what am I going to do? There ain't no way like I'm going to make it happen. So I'm going to try to work in tandem with God. So here's what I think my responsibility is. And the story of where this happened in my life was the World Championship of Public Speaking. I was not my idea to pursue the World Championship of Public Speaking. I woke up October 27th, 2005. I felt like God said, Rory, this is your step. Pursue the World Championship of Public Speaking.
And when you say felt like God said, it was like, because I know a lot of people, I have those moments, but could you quickly articulate what that's like, that impression, that whisper, I like to say like the still small whisper of the Holy Spirit. But when you say, I felt like God said.
I woke up in the middle of the night and all I could think about, I had never heard about the contest. I heard about the contest a few weeks ago and I was like, oh, cool. Like just never thought anything about it. And then woke up in the middle of the night, like glaring focus in my mind, like this contest, World Championship of Public Speaking, can go after this. And so it wasn't like my idea.
Yeah.
Going after the New York Times, I felt that was more like my idea. I wanted to be a New York Times bestselling author. This was not my idea. And so I ran at it full steam, spoke 304 times for free, like all the coaching, all the story I shared earlier. Got all the way to the World Championship. And the first year when I lost, I knew I was going to lose. I wasn't ready yet. And that's why I went back in the second year. And I went full force. I brought everything to it. And then when they announced me at second place, I was almost like shocked because my speech was good enough to win. It could have gone either way. And I was like, what's up with that, God? Like, this was your idea, not mine. And that's where I realized there's this beautiful payoff here that happened. I didn't have any anger or guilt or embarrassment about coming in second place. And I also had no drive or ambition to go back and do it a third time. And the reason was because I had done every single thing in my power to do it. And so I think our responsibility is not to pray and sit in a room and wait for God to make it happen.
Good.
I think my responsibility is to pray and say, God, what would you have me do? And to run full force at it. Do every single thing in my power to make it happen. Because the payoff of doing every single thing in my power to make it happen is if it doesn't happen, I can be fully convicted, 100% sure and clear that it's because God has some other path for me. But if it doesn't come true, I don't know if that's because it was God's plan or because of a much more likely truth, which is that I didn't show up and do the work. So I am surrendered ultimately to him, but I am obligated to show up fully 100%. Here's an analogy of how I think about this. It's like a hallway. Okay, so let's say I'm in this hallway and there's this door at the end of the hallway and God shows me this door, right? World Championship of Public Speaking or whatever it is, right? Start a church, write a book, like launch a business, whatever it is. And I'm like, interesting. I'm seeing this thing clearly and I'm praying about it and I'm in God's word and I'm reading and I go, yeah, I feel like I'm supposed to do this. And so I run with full brunt force, like sprinting down the hallway. And I'm like, I'm going to barrel through this door, right? And I leap and I hit that door. And one of two things happens. Either the door goes flying open and it's like, welcome to your promised land. Or I slam into that door in a painful, like the door is locked and I smash into it and I collapse into a pile of mush. And that's what happened in the World Championship. Like, what happened here? And every time you do that, you'll like look up to the left or the right, and there will be a door that's cracked open at the end of that hallway on the side. But you couldn't see that door when you were at the end of the hallway. I had to go here.
That's good.
In order to see
I love that.
the next door. And if I don't follow faithfully, just because God gave me that vision doesn't mean it's going to come true.
Right.
It's because that's the next step.
Yep.
Right?
The goal is obedience, not what obedience will bring you.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing it's another cheesy line is like, don't trust, just commit to whatever God, just obey God, and whatever the outcome is the outcome.
Yeah. And I in Take the Stairs, the way that I said that was, put your self-esteem into your work habits, not your results. Mm-hmm. Right. And we used to coach salespeople all the time, and it's like, they're the worst. Like they have, when they have a great month, they're like, I'm the man, look at me, like buy the stuff, whatever, and win the awards. And then they have a bad month and they're just like, devastated. And it's like, no, show up and put in the work every single day, whether you're getting rewarded or not, whether people are paying or not, whether anyone's applauding you or not. Show up and do the work today and tomorrow. And tomorrow, this is another catchphrase from my first book, Take the Stairs. Success is never owned. Success is rented. And the rent is due every day. My job is to show up and do the work and say, God, what would you have me do today? Yes, sir. I'll get right on it.
So good.
And I do that, and I do that, and I do that. And I go, you know what? I trust Jeremiah 29:11 that God has a plan for me and plan to prosper me and not to harm me, to give me a hope and a future. Why do I trust it? Because it's written in the word of God.
Yeah.
Like he says, his character is revealed. And, the whole Old Testament is a bunch of people that go like, every time y'all abandon his will, like every time you'll start worshiping other gods, your deal falls apart.
100.
Like all he wants is for you to go, you're the most important thing in my life.
So good.
I worship you. And let him take care of the rest, right? And so it's like, I don't know.
That. No, and I love that. Yeah, this weekend, the sermon was on David, when David's saying he's discouraged, and in the same verse, he encouraged himself in the Lord. But then afterwards, so he does that before he even prays. And then after that, he inquires of the Lord, our pastor was talking about, like, that's essentially spiritual maturity, is rather than asking God for the thing, it's inquiring, or like asking him for something, it's inquiring him with what do you want? And that is a spiritual maturity that I think you grow into over time, because you realize just asking God to bless your life or bless the thing that you want or bless your plan it's thy will be done.
Yeah. Like that is it's right there. And when Jesus teaches us how to pray, thy will be done. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like, I hold my goals and my dreams loosely. I pursue them. Them aggressively.
Yeah.
But I hold them loosely, because ultimately I'm going to try to go. I'm going to do my best to go in whatever direction I think God has taken me. And I haven't always done that. But when you do, the payoff is peace. Mm. The payoff is peace. And you go like, so who cares? What else do you need?
Yeah.
Like how many, like there's no amount of followers that'll give you that peace. There's no amount of money. There's no amount of awards. There's no like title, this, that. We love pursuing the New York Times bestselling author. It's so hard. We love doing it. It's a fun game. The truth is, bestseller lists don't change lives.
Right.
But books do. Mm-hmm. And so it's a fun game to play and pursue. But like if it doesn't happen, you go, who cares? They cannot stop you from changing lives. They cannot stop you from selling books. They cannot stop you from getting your message out in the world. If you get the designation, fantastic. You think it doesn't make a lick of the difference. By the way, in the personal brand, the research study, we actually asked this question. We said, which of the following factors are the most likely to cause you to buy from a personal brand? And we listed all these things. Have a nice website, have a large YouTube, have a big social media following. They have a blog, they have a podcast. They are a New York Times bestselling author, a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, an Amazon self-published author, blah, 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 blah. We literally can prove that the average person on the street cannot delineate between a New York Times bestselling author, a Wall Street Journal, and a traditional published author or self-published author. Mm. And of all the things I listed, the average person on the street doesn't care about any of those things. The number one thing, according to the data, that Americans said, this is what will actually cause me to buy from a personal brand, testimonials on your website. They want to hear from 62% of Americans said the single most important influential piece of marketing you can do. It's not how pretty it is. It's not being mobile optimized. It's testimonials from your actual customers. We can do that for free. We can do that by this afternoon. We don't need anybody in an ivory tower to sign off. What we have to do is serve our audience in a deeper way. We have to serve people. Like, it comes back to that, going, that's the great marketing strategy here, is to care about people, to over deliver, to serve them, and to help them create a result.
So good. Man, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being on. If you could just plug away, how can people connect with you and tap into what it is you're doing?
Totally. So we're a personal brand strategy firm. I mentioned we do a lot of stuff human, so we're still human. Like, we use AI for some things, but we're like human. And we do our first call with everybody for free. So if you're going, I want to build my personal brand, and I feel like I have a message inside of me that I want to get out, but I'm struggling to figure out, what problem do I solve in one word? What audience should I serve? What is my message in one sentence? What's the one revenue stream that should matter? Like, if you're struggling with distraction and dilution, and you feel like you're bouncing on the wall and you're living in chaos, and yet you're so clear that you go, I am being called to share this message, but I am struggling and swimming in this like distraction of like what to do, then you should request a call with us. So if you go to freebrandcall.com/Omar, freebrandcall.com/Omar, we do the first call for free. And people often expect that our stuff is like super expensive just because we work with like really high profile people. It's really not. We have different tiers for different levels. Now, working with me one-on-one, that's expensive. That's very expensive, but worth it. That's how I like to describe it. But our whole team is super highly trained. We got like 45 full-time employees, and it's very affordable. It's doable, especially relative to going, if we can help you grow your revenue tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, if we can get you hundreds of thousands of dollars in speaking fees and book deals and sales, it's very, very affordable. So, but anyways, start with the call. The first call is free, freebrandcall.com/Omar. I mean, I would just check that out.
Good.
Start there.
And I would say follow. You guys got a podcast. We'll link everything in the show notes in the description. Appreciate you. Thank you for being on.
Yeah.
I hope people got value, and I know they got value.
Thank you, Omar. And one last little just piece on this. If we believe that the calling on your heart, like if you feel this calling to share a message with the world, we really believe that the calling on your heart is the result of a signal that's being sent out by someone else out there who needs you.
That's good.
And you have to realize that person needs you much more badly than you need them. And if you don't listen to that signal, it's usually because of fear. It's usually going, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to use the equipment. I don't know if anyone's going to like my stuff. Are they going to, follow me, whatever. And fear is so self-centered.
Yep. But
there is no fear when the mission to serve is clear. And if you just stay focused on helping that person, you're going to win. And the other thing on this is I really believe this is a spiritual battle, because in order for the devil to defeat you, he just has to distract you, right? He doesn't have to kill you. He just has to distract you. And the tool of the devil is deceit, right? And so imposter syndrome is, I think, one of the greatest tools that the devil has going today, saying, you're not good enough. Why would anyone listen to you? Why would they follow your podcast when they can watch Omar's? Look how nice Omar's podcast. Like, why would they follow your podcast, right? That's the devil.
Yep.
And all he's got to do is convince you you're not good enough. All of us have earned the right to help somebody. And if you don't believe that, I want to share with you, because we didn't get to this. So I'll end on this. We talked about the 2-day experience to find your uniqueness. We discovered a shortcut. If there is a shortcut, it was this pattern that we noticed. After we didn't know it when we started the company. We only noticed it after working with a couple thousand clients. And the pattern that we noticed is we realized that for all of us, you are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. So you said, how do I get clear on my who? The fastest way to get clear on the who is to say, what challenge have you conquered? What obstacles have you overcome? What setbacks have you survived? What tragedy have you triumphed over? Because that is the person that I believe that God has divinely designed you and has created the whole path of your entire life so that you could one day reach back and help that person. And when you're focused on them, there is no fear. There is no fear when the mission to serve is clear.
So good. There's no fear. How many bars were in this conversation?
What's a bar?
A bar, like in rap, they have 16 verses or 16 lines, like a 16. If you
In rap?
Yeah, if I had a
did not know
song
this.
and you were gonna feature on my song, I would say, can you give me a 16? And it would be 16 lines, or in other words, 16 bars. And so, rap uses a lot of metaphor and, all that is poetic stuff. So you have these bars. So like they're standalone and they have so much power all by themselves. So that's a bar.
I hope I was able to throw at least 16 bars
No,
away.
plenty, more than 16. Yeah.